Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, the AP Pro's Guide to Modernizing Your Process, brought to you by IOFM and sponsored by Tipalti. We have a few housekeeping notes to go over before we get started. If you have any technical questions or issues using the WebEx platform, please use the chat box and I will respond right away. If you have any issues with audio, please click on the phone icon above the chat window to receive the teleconference info. For those that do call in, to ensure call quality, everyone's lines have been muted. If you happen to get disconnected, you can log on again using the instructions provided in your webinar confirmation email. If you continue to experience difficulty, please email webinars@iofm.com and we will respond as soon as we can. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation. Please type your questions into the chat box and hit send to submit them. At the end of the presentation, we will have our presenters answer these questions. We will have 3 polling questions during the webinar. A pop-up box will appear when we run each poll. Please choose from the multiple choice answers and hit submit. We'd love to have your participation and insight. This webinar will be recorded and you will receive a thank you email with the on-demand materials within 2 business days. Our first speaker today is Marc Brousseau, President of Brousseau & Associates. Over the past 26 years, Marc has established himself as a thought leader on accounts payable, accounts receivable, payments, and document automation. A popular speaker at industry conferences and on webinars and podcasts, Brousseau advises prominent end users and service providers on how to use automation to improve document and payment-driven business processes. Brousseau has chaired numerous educational conferences and has served on several industry committees and boards. He resides in Center City, Philadelphia with his wife and 3 sons. We also have Derek Cheng, Senior Director of Corporate Marketing at Tipalti. Derek is the Senior Director of Corporate Marketing at Tipalti, the leader in global payables automation. He leads the development of content and is the co-host of Business Finance Friends podcast. He's authored multiple white papers and articles in the areas of finance operations and is an avid technologist for back office processes spanning a career of over 25 years. At this time, I'd like to welcome our speakers and hand the webinar off to Marc.
Hey, thank you so much, Jovi, and thank you all for joining us today. So finance teams have worked hard over the past year to help navigate their business through these challenging times. Now comes the really hard part, preparing their business to scale efficiently and achieve sustainable growth in the economy. Accounts payable leaders can play a critical role in setting their business up for long-term success, but they're going to need to be more than tacticians. They're going to need to take a strategic role in the organization. And that's the focus of today's webinar. This webinar will reveal why accounts payable leaders must become agents of change within their organization, how automation empowers accounts payable to be a strategic function, and an action plan for preparing your accounts payable department and your business for future success. But before we do all that, I want to start with a poll question, which is about to be displayed on your screen. We want to know, how has the strategic value of your accounts payable department changed compared to 2 years ago? Is it of significantly higher strategic value? Is it of slightly higher strategic value? Has the strategic value of your department not changed? Or is your department of slightly lower strategic value, or heavens to Murgatroyd, of significantly lower strategic value? Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen. We'll discuss the results in just a moment. So Derek, when you're talking to senior finance execs, what are they telling you is their view of accounts payable in their organization?
Well, they're certainly more thinking about it in more strategic terms, certainly as it relates to how spend is working within the organization. I think that the more advanced companies, they don't think of it as a is a hole you drop money into. It's much more tied to the operational side of the business.
Are most accounts payable departments you encounter up to the task?
They want to be. I think that they want to get back to high value work. So a lot of it is streamlining that process for their organization.
What's in it for accounts payable leaders? Why should they be so concerned about raising the strategic value of their organization?
I think accounts payable is a really important part of the company, right? It's where that money leaves the building. So you want to make sure, from a compliance standpoint, from an efficiency standpoint, from the ability to ensure that your service providers and solution providers, your suppliers are all being paid and you have good relationships with them. It's all critical to the function of the business as a whole.
Yeah, and when I talk to a lot of AP leaders, what they suggest is, well, is this really my role? Why is it that AP leaders should step up and be the ones to lead this charge, Derek?
Visibility. They have unique visibility into the organization, into the transactions that are out there. Who else is better aligned to that? You have the keys to that, to the safe, basically.
That's absolutely right. We asked our attendees, how has the strategic value of their AP department changed compared to 2 years ago? Look at this, Derek. 52% of our attendees say their department is of slightly higher strategic value. Another 18% of our attendees say it's of significantly higher strategic value. Nearly 3/4 of all our attendees believe that their function's strategic value to the organization has grown over the past 2 years. Does that surprise you, Derek?
No, I think AP is also maybe the last bastion of finance that's getting some attention, and so I think it makes a lot of sense.
What's the single most important thing an AP leader can do starting today to ensure that their department lives up to the expectations of their senior management when it comes to the strategic value?
I think keep thinking long term. Don't worry about today's pain, but think about how that pain is going to grow over time, and that's those are the areas to stress probably.
Indeed, every corner of the business is expected to step up and find new ways to adapt and to scale. And ladies and gentlemen, accounts payable is no exception. Over the last 3 years, the percentage of IOFM members that say that their business views AP as playing a significantly bigger strategic role in the organization has nearly doubled. And this is a big change for AP. Let's face it, for years, AP was the quintessential back office function. And a lot of that, well, it's been well earned. AP professionals have been so consumed with mundane tasks such as transaction processing, they didn't have a whole lot of time to focus on strategic initiatives. The digital transformation efforts that are sweeping across our businesses, well, they're raising the stakes for accounts payable leaders. Departments that are too slow to modernize, well, you run the risk of being devalued. And worse, emerging technologies such as robotic process automation and artificial intelligence, they can easily replace manual repetitive tasks. And that, my friends, can jeopardize the jobs of accounts payable staff who don't reinvent their positions to focus on the higher value activities such as data analysis and supplier management that your senior management is so keen on you focusing on. Businesses want accounts payable to go beyond traditional accounting responsibilities. What the business wants you to do is to help drive things like timely business performance visibility, what Derek just spoke of, business analysis, cash forecasting, financial cash and cost controls, and even productivity improvements. And accounts payable is expected to do all of this while balancing those short and long-term goals that Derek spoke of. And why should it be accounts payable that drives this change? Well, accounts payable leaders have their proverbial thumb on the pulse of the organization's cash flow and spending. This is the lifeline of the business. The insights provided by accounts payable can help a business seize opportunities and avoid big issues, particularly in unsettled times like this. But driving change requires accounts payable leaders to move away from their traditional responsibilities and assert themselves as strategists. That's right, strategists. Manual accounts payable operations have held us back for too long. They consume time and money and resources that could be put into guiding the business. No, any way you cut it, accounts payable is the most time-consuming function in finance today. So it stands to reason that modernizing our processes and our systems is essential to enabling business growth and success. Nearly half of CFOs said that their teams are spending 5 to 10 people hours per week on accounts payable related tasks such as invoice processing and supplier inquiries and supplier payments, supplier registration, and payment reconciliation. All told, that's up to 520 hours dedicated to these tasks every single year. We're always wondering, where does the time go? Well, there's your answer. And in addition to the loss of time, manual accounts payable tasks have real economic consequences. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, hourly earnings averaged $29.37 back in June. That means that tasks like supplier registration and invoice processing and supplier payment execution and payment reconciliation, you know the list, they could be costing your business anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 every year. That's money that your business can invest in growth-generating activities. And it's not just internal processes that are consuming so much of an accounts payable professional's day. Many of us are overrun with tasks related to serving our suppliers. You know the list: onboarding issues, discrepancies, problems, phone calls and emails about the status of invoices and payments. IOFM benchmarking data shows that it costs an average of $3.60 to resolve just one supplier inquiry. Think for a moment about all the calls and all the emails your entire team receives each month from suppliers. And then think about how many calls and emails people in other parts of the organization are receiving from suppliers. And the shift to remote working has only made things worse. It's made the cost of replying to supplier inquiries more expensive. It's harder to track down the information necessary to resolve supplier inquiries when we're all working from home. We can't lay our hands on the information. We can't walk over to the cubicle of the person who might have the answer. And what's more, your suppliers may not have ready access to the information they need when they're working remotely. So you're probably getting more phone calls and more emails from suppliers these days about the status of their invoices and payments. And these inefficiencies in processing supplier invoices and payments comes at a time when all our departments are facing new issues. We've got a sudden shift in remote working. We have increased reporting pressures. We have heightened risk of fraud and compliance issues. And the burden's even greater for those of you at fast-growing global businesses. Without the right processes in place, a growing volume of suppliers and international payments can hinder cash flow management. And technology is the key to laying the foundation that accounts payable departments need to fix all of this. Automation dramatically changes the way finance functions such as accounts payable operate. Here are some of the benefits that CFOs achieved by automating some or all of their finance processes. 55% of CFOs eliminated over 40% of their manual process time. Think of what your staff could do with another 40% of their time freed up. 47% improved customer service through automation. Think about how much happier your internal stakeholders, as well as your suppliers, could be if they had instant access to information. 40% achieved a better user experience. One of the biggest myths about AP automation is that users won't go for it. Soon after automating accounts payable, you find that morale goes up, turnover drops, and everyone becomes a stark raving fan of automation. 30% reduced compliance risk. And this is a big issue at times like these. If you're relying on email to route your invoices for approval, you are running the risk of fraud and compliance issues. And 37% enhanced visibility and reporting. And that's critical at a time like this. These types of benefits can help finance guide their organization not just to short-term gains, but to long-term sustainable success. With automation, accounts payable teams can focus on strategic objectives like finding ways to reduce costs and enhance revenues, not just making sure that suppliers are getting paid on time. And these types of benefits can help finance achieve the things the business is after, those goals that senior executives are after that Derek was speaking of. This is why 62% of CFOs say that after they automate finance processes, they're going to switch employees from manual tasks to higher value work. They know that if they can free up the resources to focus on activities like data analysis, that will help drive the company's growth and profitability. Now, I know that some of you may still be reluctant to embrace automation. Some of you might have concerns about automation's effect on your operations. You've been doing things the same way for a long time, you might note. Some of you might fear that your staff doesn't have the right skills to deal with automation. Some of you might have team members who are worried that automation could replace their jobs. The thing is that AP leaders can't turn a blind eye towards the productivity gains delivered by automation for much longer. Your business is counting on you to automate, and they're counting on you to do it now. There's mounting pressure on accounts payable to free up bandwidth to focus on strategic tasks. 46% of businesses say that next to the financial health, their number one priority is profitability, cash flow, and other financial planning. 2/3 of companies globally now expect to pursue cost reduction over the next 12 months. That's compared with just 38% before the pandemic started. And more than 70% of CFOs from medium to large US companies feel that the executive team's increasing demands could be particularly challenging to address if their finance department doesn't automate. In fact, 75% of organizations could go out of business entirely if they don't scale technologies such as artificial intelligence. That's according to a study from Accenture. So you might be asking the question, what is it your department should be doing? Well, accounts payable departments must take a holistic approach to modernizing their operations. Piecemeal isn't good enough anymore. You need to look for a solution that automates the three primary steps of the accounts payable cycle. First, supplier onboarding. As businesses scale globally, they engage and pay new suppliers. And adding a new supplier, particularly an international one, creates risk exposures that need to be recognized and managed and mitigated, such as adding a supplier that the business can't pay by law. There's also necessary tax compliance processes for paying foreign suppliers. So you got to get supplier onboarding right. But it's not easy in a manual environment, and that's where AP automation excels. The second step is invoice handling. Manual processes are a major contributor to inefficiencies in invoice processing. Think about it. Data entry and line coding and approval routing and other manual processes, they increase complexity, they increase risk, they slow things down. Third is supplier payment execution. Accounts payable departments are offering numerous payment options to entice suppliers to abandon paper checks. We've seen a huge upswing in the past year of the number of AP departments that plan to automate the way they pay their suppliers. Inefficiencies in how and when supplier payments are made, well, they result in significant hidden costs to you. For example, having to resend a wire transfer can be costly, complicated, and potentially damaging to your supplier relationship. And it's only made worse as you grow. The larger the volume, the more complexity. Combating manual issues such as high invoice processing costs, lost invoices, late payments, and lots of supplier increase is critical, my friends, to creating a strategic accounts payable function. Best in class accounts payable departments are investing in complete holistic payable solutions. And those solutions typically combine three key elements. One is standardized accounts payable processes across the enterprise. So no matter where you operate and how you operate, you want to ensure that you have consistent, normalized processes. You want controls. Second, you want the ability to process invoices straight through from receipt to approval to payment. We know that the majority of IOFM members manually handle the majority of invoices they receive from suppliers. Many of you manually handle all of the invoices you receive from suppliers. Every time you handle an invoice, that increases your cost, chance of errors, slows down your cycle times, impedes your visibility, and it increases the chances that you're going to frustrate internal stakeholders as well as suppliers. And third, you need to ensure your solution has automatic routing of invoices for approval. You want to be able to digitally route unmatched invoices or those invoices that require approval based on pre-configured business rules. You want to ensure that those invoices can get to the right person every time. No misrouted invoices, ensuring chain of custody and segregation of duties, all with visibility throughout the process. These solutions provide you with a solid foundation for scalability and growth. And that's going to be key moving forward. And that brings us to our next poll question, which is about to be displayed on your screen. This time we want to know, how has demand for real-time visibility into accounts payable data changed over the past year? Have you seen significantly higher demand for real-time visibility into accounts payable data? Have you experienced slightly higher demand for real-time visibility into accounts payable data? Has the demand for real-time visibility into AP data been unchanged? Are you experiencing slightly lower demand for real-time visibility into AP data, or are you seeing significantly lower demand for real-time visibility to AP data? Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen. I'll discuss the results in just a moment. Derek, when you talk to organizations that haven't automated yet, where do you find that they're experiencing the biggest challenges when it comes to visibility? What is it that they just can't lay their hands on?
Usually it's reconciliation. That process where you get information back from your bank about whether or not payment landed. I think that's always a trick, especially in the paper check world. It's very hard to do. And then if you were talking cross-border international payments, that also increases that fogginess around payments.
We know that many organizations are still relying on Excel spreadsheets for their reporting. Why is that a bad idea, Derek?
Have you ever tried to share an Excel spreadsheet? It's
Pe-
complicated.
People are pretty proud of those pivot tables, Derek.
Oh, I know. And I've written a few array functions as well, and just doing analysis. But that's not a way to run an operation. Excel's great for analysis, but it's not a way to monitor transactions or record transactions. That kind of spreadsheet kung fu that you need to do is just not. It's not designed for everyday processes.
When you talk to senior executives for Tipalti customers, what are some examples of the types of reports or analytics they're getting out of your solution that they find particularly valuable when it comes to making strategic decisions?
Well, we do a lot with payment transaction conversion rate, monitoring conversion rates. So getting that kind of reconciliation back in directly from the electronic payments that they're making. That's a big help, especially when they're going to monthly close. We generally reduce the monthly close cycle by about 25%, simply because they don't have to hunt down the various bank accounts that they might need in a normal situation. We're pulling all that data directly in for them, and they have ready view of that, so they could reconcile every week if they wanted to.
We know that many organizations have relied heavily on reporting out of their ERP, but I believe that over the past year, the move to remote working has really exposed and exacerbated some of the shortcomings as it comes to ERP reporting. Do you agree with that?
I think so. I think if you don't have an integration there, and that you're not getting the right data into your ERP, then the ERP doesn't work. And so being able to have that real-time connection to an ERP so that you can see whether or not the invoices you're processing, the payments you're making, if that data is making it into the system of record, then that's probably the next step for you.
No conversation about visibility and reporting would be complete without bringing up the financial close. We know that many organizations it's harder these days now that they're working remotely. How does automation help streamline the financial close?
Primarily because it's at the transaction level. You're monitoring every transaction, everything that goes out, any of the fees or conversion rates that are associated with it. Whether or not it made it, ideally, and rather than waiting for your suppliers to tell you if they got the paid, have the system tell you that.
We asked our attendees, how has demand for real-time visibility into their accounts payable data changed over the past year? Derek, this is pretty staggering. 83% of our attendees have experienced higher demand for real-time visibility into their AP data. 67% of them said they've experienced slightly higher demand, while 16% have experienced significantly higher demand. Does this surprise you?
It's not surprising, but I will say this is probably the one thing the country can agree on.
We need AP data and we need it now. What should an AP leader do to understand that if they're delivering what they need to senior management? Are AP leaders performing an audit of their reporting? Is that something they should be doing to make sure they're giving senior management what they want?
Yeah, I think like all finance folks, the more data you have, the more empowered you feel, and you can, have a sharper picture of what's happening. So I don't think there's ever going to be a lack of passion for the data. So getting that data in there, getting as much as you can, is preferable, and certainly, getting it in a normalized way so you don't have to like look at it and then decipher it because 5 different banks are telling you 5 different things. You don't want that. You want to be able to get clean, unobstructed data, but that is in a form that you understand and don't have to do a lot of work for.
How does the move to remote working change the calculus when it comes to real-time visibility into AP data?
I think if it's accessible to everyone, then everyone can see it and make sure that they have awareness of what's going on, specific in their world.
Are you ready to step up and take a more strategic role in helping your business achieve success? Well, if so, I'm going to give you some steps that you can take to get started. The first is to optimize remote working. Hate to say it, folks, whether you love it or you hate it, remote working is probably here to stay. You need to find ways to optimize your processes when staff work remotely, whether that's across town or across the globe. So to fully optimize remote work, you need to implement a 100% cloud-based solution that digitizes functions such as invoice collection, invoice processing, approval routing, and payments to suppliers. And it needs to do all of this while making it easier for staff to stay aligned. It's no surprise that 27% of accounts payable leaders say that ensuring productivity is their top priority as staff works from home. Adapting paper-based and semi-automated processes to a remote working environment, well, it's been downright hard. And similarly, 24% of AP leaders want to find ways to accelerate their invoice approval cycle times. We know that AP professionals are working longer hours these days. In fact, 8% of you are working an additional 2 hours per day or more. That's a 25% increase in our work days. And let's face it, we were working long hours before the pandemic. And now it's harder because we're juggling the rigors of work and home life and burnout. Burnout's a real risk for our staff. 22% of AP leaders want to eliminate paper processes. The pandemic could very well be the end of paper invoices and paper checks, and you need to make sure you're prepared. The second step for modernizing your AP department is to ensure accessibility. In today's fast-changing, on-demand business environment, it's critical to have an accounts payable solution that can keep up. Cloud-based offerings provide your business with a truly modernized solution that can enable it to thrive in increasingly competitive global environments. So how can you ensure that you've got an accessible solution? Well, when evaluating financial technology, consider whether the infrastructure is modern, whether it offers 24/7 availability, whether it's 100% cloud-based, and whether it facilitates real-time user interactions. Software as a service solutions, well, they're tailored to be consistent, reliable platforms for automating critical business operations. They can grow with your organization. The third step to becoming a modern accounts payable operation is to consolidate. Doing more with less frees up resources that can be used to prepare your business for future growth. Consider what transactional, repetitive, and time-consuming invoice processing functions can be streamlined. Technologies such as optical character recognition, or OCR, artificial intelligence, machine learning, these eliminate manual tasks. Ask technology providers what they're doing with these technologies and how your company can take advantage of them. You can achieve even greater efficiencies by consolidating heavily manual functions such as supplier management, invoice processing, multi-entity management, and payments onto a single technology platform. This is no time for piecemeal solutions. You want to find something that can improve your processes from end to end. The next step to creating a modern accounts payable operation is to empower your suppliers. You want your staff to spend less time serving your suppliers and more time doing data analysis on them. And that's where a self-service supplier portal comes in. A portal can collect contact details, verify bank account information, and collect and validate IRS and VAT tax IDs all automatically and seamlessly. A supplier portal saves you time. It accelerates onboarding and it mitigates the risk of compliance issues. I know that many of you have leaned heavily on email to onboard suppliers during the operational disruption caused by the pandemic. You've got to stop that. It's just too risky. It's too inefficient, and it doesn't provide you with the visibility into the process that you need. You also want to strive for transparency. You don't want near-time visibility. You want real-time visibility into what's going on in your operation. Automation provides your department with better visibility into its operations and the data that flows through it. As Derek said, AP sits on a treasure trove of data. The problem is we take a lot of that data and we leave it on the paper. We stuff it in file cabinets in our hallways when we used to go to the office. We put it in cardboard boxes and shift it off site and hope to God that nobody ever asks us to produce it. Well, the fact is that the business landscape can no longer rely on this kind of reactive decision-making. With the tools to access reliable, real-time accounts payable data, decision makers can gain a critical perspective on the business and offer proactive, impactful ideas to move things forward. And this is going to be key as we start to gear up in the recovery. Real-time visibility also empowers us, AP leaders, to monitor operational performance and act fast on potential bottlenecks or issues. And it also helps us ensure compliance, control, and security no matter where our staff works. You also want to get cash controls at your fingertips. The key is to deploy a solution that provides 24/7 visibility through dashboards and drill down capabilities and mobile access and even ad hoc reporting. These types of tools put the cash controls at a finance and accounting team's fingertips. And this allows for real-time visibility, easier modeling, easier cash forecasting, and greater control over your purchasing. When you're building your modern AP organization, you also want to think globally. The modern AP department should support global commerce. Even small businesses are doing business overseas, from streaming and mobile to gaming and e-commerce. Industries that thrive in a remote setting are experiencing tremendous growth these days. But many high velocity companies are even trying to expand their operations globally. So it's not just certain verticals. When you fully capitalize on new global opportunities, it's going to require AP systems that are accessible from anywhere in the world, that support multiple languages, multiple currencies, and as Derek suggested earlier, multiple cross-border payments. Your goal is to find a solution that makes it easy to pay your global suppliers while mitigating potential risks. You also want to find ways to digitize your financial controls. Creating a strategic accounts payable function requires a big focus on securing sensitive financial information, as well as the ability to monitor and control all accounts payable operations competently, no matter where your staff works. Automation enables organizations to implement greater financial controls by collecting accurate supplier contact information, as well as tax and legal document, multi-user privileges, audit trails, predefined workflows. These all help to mitigate the risk of frauds. You can't do that with your email routing of invoices. And financial reporting and analysis and the controls built into an automated solution like Digitize help organizations comply with regulatory requirements and audit processes and mitigate risk related to tax and regulatory compliance. And finally, you want to keep an eye on the future. You want to remember that flexible and agile technology is key to adapting to future trends and to responding fast to disruptive competitors as well as unforeseen market changes. As you modernize your AP tech stack, I want you to consider your business's maturity, its core strategic priorities, as well as the complexity of your organization and your business model. You also want to give some thought to where your business aims to be in a year or two. The technologies that Derek and I have been talking about today, well, they're foundational technologies. You shouldn't have to replace them for a while. You don't want to be changing your processes every year. You want to make sure you have a tech stack that's in it for the long haul and that can support your scalability, including your growth overseas. Many accounts payable departments start small when it comes to automation, and then they scale over time. And that's why it's imperative to implement solutions that will grow with your department. So what if you do everything I just said? Well, the right AP tech stack is going to help you not only address your short-term requirements, but your long-term strategic priorities as well. It's going to enable you to effectively modernize your finance operation for lasting gains, no matter how the future unfolds. If you choose the right AP tech stack, then you're going to be able to maximize efficiency, accelerate your business visibility, enable adaptability to your changing business needs, and institute smart financial and cash controls. What's the message Derek and I want to leave you with today? Well, it's this. For businesses to survive and succeed in the future, they're going to need to transform their underlying operating models and costs. And we believe that accounts payable is a good place to start. Automation makes financial processes such as supplier management and invoice processing and supplier payments, it makes them faster and less labor intensive. And that frees finance teams to spend more time on strategic work like forecasting, and investment decision making, and enhancing financial controls, and even supporting globalization and M&A activities. And when you do that, then you're going to have a significant impact on your organization. And that brings us to our next poll question, which is about to be displayed on your screen. This time we want to know, how well prepared is your AP department to drive growth and value for your business? No fibbing. Do you believe you're well prepared? Do you believe you're partially prepared? Or do you believe you've got a lot of work to do? Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen. We'll discuss the results in just a moment. So if you had to give our profession a grade, Derek, how well prepared do you believe they are to help their businesses drive growth and value?
Probably the majority are going to land in the middle somewhere. This is a safe space. You can feel free to be truthful. Uh, yeah, I think most people would say they're probably around the B area.
What are some canaries in the coal mine? What are telltale signs of a department that's not prepared?
If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, if you are basically, relegating it to a basic process and no one's paying attention to it, then that doesn't seem like prepared. That seems like kind of apathy.
Why now? AP leaders are probably thinking to themselves, my gosh, Mark and Derek, we already have enough on our plate. Why should we be taking on an automation project now?
There's no time like the present. No, I mean, it's work, right? It's all about getting better at your work and getting having more of those insights, having more room to have those insights. You can't do that if you're burdened by the transactions that are out there. Can't do that if you're keying in invoices. That's all part of the job. The job doesn't go away. It's just, what can you manufacture within your job to take the next broader leadership step?
We asked our attendees how well they believe their AP department is to drive growth and value for the business. 61% of our attendees believe that their department is partially prepared to help drive growth and value for the business. 25% of our attendees believe they're well prepared. 5% have a lot of work to do. If I had to wager, Derek, I would assume that the 61% who say they're partially prepared are probably operating in a partially automated accounts payable environment. Now, they might be feeling smug. They might be feeling, well, I'm ahead of the people who are pushing paper around. Why is semi-automation or being partially prepared not good enough?
Again, it's about your outlook, your 2-year, 3-year outlook. You might be prepared for what you have right now, but are you actually taking the long view of that? So it's just about having a long-term goal and long-term vision for yourself, for your organization, what you want to do, what you want to be. I think you joining a community like IOFM makes you think about these things, so that's great.
So you might be wondering how it is your organization can better prepare itself to help drive growth and value for the business. To help get you started, I'm going to hand it off to Derek. Derek?
Thanks, Mark. And again, thanks for the IOFM community for the opportunity to talk today. I got a little quiz for you, Mark. What do Janet Jackson, a game on Roblox, and a substitute teacher have in common?
I don't know.
All right. You need a larger sample size. How about a translator in Vietnam, a maker of a see-through guitar, and a shipping inspector at the Port of London?
Okay. No guesses.
Okay, more clues. Let's try that. Let's add an ERP consultant, a yoga instructor in San Diego, and a photojournalist in Nepal.
I don't know.
All right. They are all getting paid by companies that use Tipalti. And it's not just these 9 folks. A single Tipalti customer often ends up paying their suppliers in the hundreds or thousands, 10,000 sometimes, for every payment run that they make. And, I'll add, we don't really work with major enterprises, so it's not like these huge teams of accounts payable people. Many are no names. They're known names, but I think there are quite a few that, you've never heard of in terms of these companies. But, usually it's a single AP team, probably no more than 3 people. In some cases, much fewer. When you're looking at sometimes, 1 or 2 people maybe working part-time on this whole process. So it's not a large footprint in terms of the organization, but they're making these payments, a vast number of them, across the world, all over the world. And do you know how long it takes them to make those thousands of payments at a time?
Not long, I'm betting.
Not long at all. Sometimes minutes. It can be as little as a few clicks.
Wow.
A couple of web pages, and I'm not talking about sending paper checks or printing a check order for your bank. No, these are really cross-border. They're using multiple payment methods. They're converting to 120 currencies. Some are wire transfers, ACH payments, SEPA payments, PayPal payments, so in most of these cases, they're landing directly into the payee's bank account. Tipalti works with over 1,400 companies, and these companies tend to stick with us at a very high retention rate. They recognize how vital payables automation is to keeping their business running. Like an ERP or their spreadsheets, payables automation is essentially infrastructure that they employ. And so CFOs and controllers, they use us to pay thousands of suppliers worldwide in a matter of clicks. And it's all, secure. All the compliance is done. All the tax compliance is done. And it's all auditable because it's returning back into the system. So you can easily reconcile it at the end of the week, at the end of the month, whenever you want to reconcile. It's there. And a cool fact, for our customers, fewer than 5% of transactions are through paper check. And all other payments are electronic. They're pandemic proof. They're accurate. And again, auditable. So not a lot to account for, really. At the end of the day, it comes back and we can drop it into your ERP, or you can look at the raw data. It's kind of up to you. When most people think of AP, they think of invoices, and we agree that's definitely one of the most painful processes within the cycle. That data entry, hunting down approvals, that's no fun for anyone. And yet when we hear the term accounts payable or AP automation within kind of like the industry, I think most people are thinking just OCR and scanning invoices in and maybe routing them for approval, but that's, to us, is not really the process. We look at it as a holistic process that starts with supplier management and onboarding, getting the right data, making sure your suppliers are payable, making sure there's tax compliance involved, that they're turning in their their I-99s or I-9s and whatnot. We were consistently able to remove 80% of the workload for this process, while also executing the payment and reconciling the payments that are part of the process. And so it really reduces the amount of work that an organization needs to do. Just yesterday, I'm really happy to announce that we acquired a company called approve.com that specializes in procurement. And so we have plans now to integrate procurement workflows into our payables platform. So that means a full end-to-end procure-to-pay process, including reconciliation. So all that running through the system, again, it's building up that tech stack that you're looking for. And I think one of the things that all this points to is that CFOs and controllers really need to understand that consolidation of finance solutions is going to happen. It's already happening. Finance and accounting software is where the world was, say, before smartphones. Some of you are old enough to remember you used to have to carry a cell phone, a camera, and a laptop if you wanted to check your email and browse the web badly and slowly. Now it's all one device. You shouldn't have to buy and manage and upgrade a lot of different tools for every process. So software providers like Tipalti, we're thinking more holistically about the entire process, where your processes begin, and how you count for the end of that process. So it's really an exciting time for our space. And I think ultimately for finance and accounting folks, it's going to be exciting for them too, because they'll finally get these great tools that maybe other departments have been kind of getting used to on their own. So it's fun, and I think we're really enjoying that process. Thanks.
And that brings us to the Q&A portion of this webinar. If you haven't already submitted your question for Derek, or if you've thought of another question for Derek, go ahead, use the chat tool on your screen to submit them to me electronically. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. One of our attendees, Derek, is wondering, so how do I go about setting my priorities for AP modernization?
Yeah, great question. Not to play payables therapist, but what it's the change you're looking to make. Also, what would you rather your team be doing? Is it planning? Is it forecasting? Is it negotiating? You want to try and remove work, but you want to have a goal in mind as to what you want to accomplish. And then I think that will help you establish what your priorities really are.
I think this is a related question. Another attendee is wondering, how do I go about building a business case for automation? Where do I start? What are the key components? What are the common mistakes other AP departments have made?
Yeah, I think not thinking long term enough. You can't say for everyone, but when it comes to projects that might have failed in the past, oftentimes it's patchwork solutions. So unless you have a team of integration experts on hand, and AP is super important in everybody's minds, including that of the CFO. These are big, hairy integrations oftentimes. So you don't want to go in with patchwork. If you're a relatively nimble company, obviously you don't have the resources for that, but you still want to be able to scale. So again, plan 3 years out, because honestly, these things are no fun to extract, and you're eating into your team's time and morale if you do.
Another attendee is wondering what's involved in deploying a solution like yours. How much IT resources do I need? How much time? How much internal resources in my department?
Ultimately, the actual Tapalti implementation is not that much. You can get up and running within a matter of weeks in some situations. I've seen it in under a week for folks that like really need the solution and are active on their end. The part that takes the longest is any kind of integration, obviously, with other systems. Specifically, if you've got some unique ERP or custom ERP, that becomes more problematic. But generally, if you have a pretty standard flow in terms of you have bills, you have vendors, and you have payments, and so that integration is generally pretty smooth.
Another attendee is wondering whether suppliers are more amenable to accepting electronic payments now that cash flow is tight.
Yeah, I think paper checks are cultural anomaly. uh, in the U.S., I think that they're kind of expected, but you look at a lot of the other countries. I think New Zealand is moving away completely from paper checks. Their banks won't even accept them or issue them anymore. And so a lot of other countries in Europe are moving in that direction. I think London, or rather England, oldest country in the world, oldest like first world country in the world, is now no longer using paper checks. So take that with what it is. I think most people, in certainly my generation and every generation beyond mine, would much rather have it land directly into their bank accounts. It's easier. It's auditable. It's just there, and so we just have to get used to it from a cultural level.
Another attendee wants to know what options are available for paying global suppliers.
Yeah, great question. So we ourselves are able to issue wire transfers. So that's to 196 countries, I believe. We can also use PayPal for a lot of the crowd and digital economy type companies that we work with. They actually like having a PayPal option. We can drop into SEPA or local bank transfers. So some banks that we work with, we're able to actually connect directly into their local ACH process. So it's not really ACH. We're just used as a shorthand term, but we're able to actually land non-wire payments into the account directly.
Another attendee writes, how do we encourage our smaller suppliers to set up ACH? We've had pushback from some of them. Our company is currently at 70% checks, 30% ACH, and we have plans to be at 10% checks by the end of 2020 as we implement our new cloud-based accounting system this year. What advice would you give? Yeah, 2022. Sorry,
Okay.
2022. I just can't get that year out of my head for some reason.
Yeah, you might have You might have a year virus, probably.
Quite possibly. I need the vaccine for that one too. So tell us, Derek, how do we get some smaller suppliers on board? Let's help this person out.
Yeah. First of all, we'd love to talk with you. I think we've got some solutions there for you. We incentivize. We actually are able to attach fees to specific payment processes. So you can actually say, you know what, you want to be paid by check? Great. But honestly, it's going to cost you an extra $10 or whatever. And that is a quick incentive. We can also tie in more regular payments. So like maybe you can say to them, hey, when we do checks, it's only every month. But if you want a payment run, every 7 days, then you probably want to choose ACH.
Another attendee writes, what are some of your experiences in working with companies with complicated and very descriptive charts of accounts?
Can you repeat the question?
What are some of your experiences in working with companies with complicated and very descriptive charts of accounts?
That's an interesting question. I'll have to get back to you. Can you, if you don't
We
mind?
will follow up with
Yeah.
you, the person who submitted it, after the webinar. And one last question. One of our attendees is wondering whether you're paying Janet Jackson with a check or ACH.
I don't think I'm allowed to disclose. Not to, I probably don't know. It's probably a wire. It's a company that we work with who pays music royalties, and so they license all of Janet's music for various uses. They're also tracking the usage. So somebody plays one of her songs in a shopping mall, then she needs to get reimbursed. So it's all part of that process, and I don't think we pay her directly. I think it goes probably to her account trust management system, whatever that is. But eventually it makes it to Janet, I think.
But you know what, Derek? I'm thinking we're going to bridge a couple of questions here. We're going to, for the guy who was asking about how to encourage smaller suppliers to get on board, this is, you tell them, if you want to get paid the same way that Janet Jackson gets paid, you got to go with Tipalti. Hey, Derek, thank you so much for an excellent presentation and for sharing your insights with us today. And thank you all for taking time out of your busy days to join us. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Jovi. Ms. Jovi.
Thank you, Mark. That's all the time we have for today's program. I just have a few housekeeping notes to go over before we officially close out. If you could please fill out the short evaluation form that will appear once you close the webinar. This will help us better serve your needs in future webinars. As a reminder, the on-demand materials will be emailed to everyone within 2 business days. This will include a PDF of the slides as well as the link to today's recording. Thank you again to Mark and Derek for a great presentation today, and thank you to all of our attendees for taking the time out of your busy days to join us. This webinar was brought to you by IOFM and sponsored by Tipalti. Thank you all and have a great day.